The story of the kings and queens of England is more surprising than you might think. It's a fine drama, 1,000 years of tales of lust and betrayal, of heroism and cruelty, of mysteries, murders, tragedies, and triumphs.
Hi everybody, welcome to the new episode of Kings and Queens of England. So, in the previous episode, we were left with Charles II dying without any children. So, as he didn't have any legitimate children, when he died, the first heir in the line was his younger brother, James. When James became king with the name of James II, he had already lost his wife, but he had two daughters, Mary the elder and Anne the younger. But while Charles II was more successful in managing relations with the parliament, his brother James II had more open Catholic sympathies and he wanted to impose his religion on a country that was mainly Protestant. So also he tried to undermine Parliament's authority to take the control as a monarch, but the Parliament fought back. The two parties, the Tories and the Whigs, reached an agreement to join their forces against the king and started the Glorious Revolution. The name Glorious Revolution is due to the fact that there was no fighting. It was a diplomatic revolution, so it was so-called bloodless. The revolution took place also because for the people it was absurd to be governed by a monarch that was chosen by the parliament and not by divine right. But anyway, the parliament succeeded, and so the parliament revised the constitution, forced the abdication of James II, and called his daughter Mary from Denmark, where she had married William of Orange. William of Orange was Dutch and also was Protestant as Mary, and also it was a part of the English royal family. So they decided to put them on the throne as joint monarchs. It means that there was not a king or a queen, but they were governing together. William was Mary's cousin. He was belonging to the Stuart family on the side of his mother. So he had a Dutch surname, William of Orange, but it was belonging from the side of his mother to the Stuart. That's why it was part of the royal English family. So, in 1689, James II was forced to exile in France with his wife and his son, and the son that could have been the next heir to the English throne, and William and Mary became the new sovereigns of England with the name of William III and Mary II. It was the first time that a monarch took the power with a contract signed with the parliament. This was the first step toward the constitutional monarchy that we still have today in Great Britain. This contract is also known as the Bill of Rights. In 1689 it was signed, and it was changing some principle established by Magna Carta and the Petition of Rights that we studied already before. The Bill of Rights stipulated that the king or the queen, in this case together, could no longer levy taxes, could not raise an army or suspend laws without the consent of the parliament. So the parliament was having more power. Also, the Triennial Act asserted that the parliament should last 3 years. And the same year, with the Act of Settlement, Parliament excluded succession to James' son, and with the Toleration Act, more religious tolerance was introduced. James, on his side, tried to take back the power with the help of the Catholic people from Ireland and Scotland, but he was defeated by William in 1690 in the Battle of Boyne. Mary died of smallpox in 1694, childless. So the parliament passed the Act of Settlement to exclude completely the Catholic from the throne and avoid that James' son could claim the throne coming back from France. William died 4 years after his wife in 1702, and they died childless, so the throne passed to the younger sister, Anne. Anne was the last monarch of the House of Stuart. In her first speech to the English Parliament, she said, "As I know my heart to be entirely English, I can very sincerely assure you there is not anything you can expect or desire from me which I shall not be ready to do for the happiness and prosperity of England." She was proudly English and Anglican, so she was a very popular queen. Also, she loved art, and she was a patron of theater, poetry, and music. For example, she supported the musician Handel with a pension when he decided to settle permanently in England. She gave also Newton the title of knight when she visited the University of Cambridge. She was the first one to create the auto right, what we call today the copyright, for the writers. So the money was going to the writers and not anymore to the editor. So writers such as Daniel Defoe, Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift flourished under her reign. She married Prince George of Denmark in 1683, and she was really in love and very fond of him. So when he died in 1708, after 25 years of marriages, Anne was devastated by grief. Anne was a very beautiful and intelligent woman, but poor Anne suffered of Hugh-Stovin syndrome, diabetes, and gout, so she could hardly work. She was tormented by ill health all her life. And because of that, from her 30s, she grew increasingly ill and also obese. You will see it in her portraits. Also because of her syndrome and probably also because of a pelvic deformation, despite 17 pregnancies by her husband, she died without a surviving child. She had 12 between miscarriages or dead-born babies, and of her 5 live-born children, 4 died before reaching the age of 2, and the only survivor, Prince William, died at the age of 11. That's why she was the last monarch of the House of Stuart. She had no heir. And so, to address the succession crisis and preclude the Catholic restoration, the Parliament had already enacted the Act of Settlement in 1701, which excluded all Catholics from the English throne. So she was succeeded by her second cousin, George I, that was coming from the House of Hanover. Anyway, during her life, she was an active monarch. She took great interest in affairs of state. She made important political decisions, and she was participating in the debates in the House of Lords. For example, she declared very necessary to conclude the union of England and Scotland in her first speech to the English Parliament. So they work on that, and in 1707, the Act of Union was passed. So the Kingdom of England and Scotland, which was the Great Britain of James I, that we started already, became the United Kingdom of Great Britain with only one parliament in Westminster. Only Ireland remained a separate kingdom with its own parliament in Dublin, but this parliament in Dublin was subordinated to the one of Westminster. The same year that she was crowned in 1702, England became embroidered in the War of the Spanish Succession, in which England, Austria, and Dutch Republic fought against France. This war started because Charles II of Spain, the one called the Bewitched, probably you have studied him in Spanish. Anyway, this is another sad story of an ill monarch. Anyway, when Charles II of Spain died, he was belonging to the family of Habsburg. He had no child. So in 1700, when he died, the succession was disputed by two claimants. One was belonging to the Habsburg, which was the Archduke Charles of Austria, and the second one was Philip Bourbon, Philip of Bourbon, Duke of Anjou, so French. The closest heir to the throne of Spain were members of Austrian Habsburgs and French Bourbons families. So the great power of Europe, including England, fought for the balance of the division of the Spanish Empire, especially for the colonies in the New World. If the crown would have gone to France, there was the possibility to create a new great kingdom uniting France and Spain. So this would have been too much powerful, and so also this would have caused problems for the other kingdoms like England, especially for the trades. Anyway, France lost the war, and with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, France had officially to recognize the Protestant succession of the English throne and to expel the exiled Stuart. It means James and his son, they were exiled in France. France had to expel them from its territory. So, recognizing officially the Protestant line to the throne of England, Catholic were excluded, and so there would not be anymore any claim to the throne of England by the Catholics, and so nothing on the French side. Also, England obtained the French territories of Canada, and very important for the economy of the time, the monopoly of the slaves with Spanish colonies in the New World. In the economy, this brought more prosperity to the English Empire. Also in 1714, the English government took off custom duties in the empire. So goods as timber, timber is legname, so timber, sugar, tea, Chinese porcelains, oriental carpets, or spices could circulate in British Empire without any added fee, so with no taxes, while all the other European products and goods became more expensive. To come back to the story of Queen Anne, from 1713, she was so ill that she couldn't walk anymore. And 1 year later, in 1714, poor Queen Anne died of erysipelas, was a bacterial infection. Her body was so swelled that her coffin was almost square shaped. Anyway, she was buried in Westminster Abbey, and what is left of her? Ancient historians, probably because they were more on the side of men, gave her little credit for her achievements, and she has long been depicted as a weak monarch dominated by her advisors. But modern historians consider that her reign was a period of significant progress for the country thanks to her. Britain became a major military power and economic and political basis for the golden age of the 18th century was established in this time. So we finish here this episode and see you next time. The pages, well, no, there's only one page to study, and it's page 117 from your book. Goodbye, everybody.